Does the Nigerian film industry, Nollywood, have better established systems than the Ghanaian film industry? I'm talking about Black Star Films. Well, KSM has highlighted some reasons why he thinks Nigeria's film industry is doing well than the Ghanaian film industry. And also, Martin Scorsese's documentary has landed at Apple with Rebecca Miller at the helm of directing and producing it. This and more is what I bring to you on this very episode of the Film Mandate. I am Papa Otu. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Film Mandate, where I bring to you movie news, reviews, and reactions both from the African front and the international scene. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for joining me for this very episode, episode 45. So we'll be delving right into the stories for today. And beginning with the very first story, KSM, one of Ghana's premier stand-up comedians, an actor and TV personality, has highlighted some structural reasons why he thinks that Nollywood is far ahead, it's far ahead in terms of how their systems are structured than the Black Star Films industry. So we'll be delving into it right away from an article that was published about 6 days ago, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it was published about six days ago. That is Friday. That is May 16th. Yeah, that's about actually a week ago, and it reads that Nigerian movie industry has established systems far ahead of Ghana's, and that is KSM, and it's written by Isaac Donko, distinguished. I read, Ghanaian actor, talk show host, and an author, Kweku Sintim Misa, popularly known as KSM, has highlighted the structural challenges facing the Ghanaian movie industry in comparison to Nigeria's. He stated that Ghanaian filmmakers operate in a system without the established structures and distribution networks that their Nigerian counterparts have developed over time. According to him, this lack of infrastructure forces many filmmakers to hustle for funding, cover production costs themselves, and still struggle to find avenues for distribution. We can't compare the film industry in Ghana to the Nigerian one because Nigerians have had a longer time of being exposed to developed systems than that work for them, especially in terms of distribution and everything. We didn't have such a system operating in Ghana for a long time, KSM said. Somebody will hustle and hustle to make money, and after using that money to shoot the film, paying the actors and everyone involved, they now have to hustle again to distribute the film because there are no distribution outlets, he added. KSM recalled that in the past, Ghanaian films were mostly sold on CDs by street vendors, which often required costly promotions like floats, methods he described as inefficient and unsustainable. It got to a point where in Ghana, when you make a film, you have to convert it into a CD. Then to sell the film, you have to mount a float, get a truck with people dancing, and then selling your CDs, which wasn't an efficient distribution method, he recalled. Yeah, so it this is what KSM had to say, and indeed that time existed. If you really do not know much about the Ghanaian film industry, and it is indeed challenging. It is indeed challenging. Funny enough, the Ghanaian film industry perhaps even was in existence in terms of back then, which was well structured because of the British film colony. I think a couple of years earlier than that of the before the Nigerian film industry or the film system was established. However, over the years, we've not been able to structure our film industry such a way that it becomes efficient. There, in the past, there existed a couple of cinemas, chains of cinemas, but if I'm not mistaken, by Nankani and Hagen, and they owned a couple of cinemas that were in Ghana at a point in time. But even with those ones, they weren't effective. They weren't enough, and the cinema going culture also didn't really exist. But beyond all that, what we lacked was the necessary structure to help ground the film industry in terms of generating revenue and aiding the filmmaker to be more focused on the project he is working on than just after shooting the production, engage in another form of struggle just to get the films distributed. And just as the Kweku Sinti Mr. KSM stressed on, that indeed becomes a challenge for a filmmaker who has to go the extra mile of not just getting funding to shoot his production, but afterwards have to craft another plan to get his film sold or her film sold, and that was really a challenge to go ahead to get what's it called, a long trailer, pack people on it with t-shirts, get them dancing in, whilst they are riding through town with sound systems on it, playing music just to draw the attention of people and ask them to buy CDs. That was quite a Herculean task on its own. That was quite a Herculean task on its own. And truly, Nigeria has had a form of structure that really worked for them, the distribution outlets and everything that is necessary to help push their film to a level that ordinarily we couldn't do here. And for us, we had some form of system that worked, like the sales of CDs or at a point in time DVDs. And there was a place in Accra, Opera Square, where back then people could go and purchase DVDs. And for some reason, it worked for a while, but it wasn't sustainable, just as KSM has said. So let's look at some of the structures that Nollywood at a point in time had, and to understand clearly what KSM was saying. So, in an article that was published in the News Central, yeah, in an article that was published in the News Central, I want to take a look. I want us to take a look at at a portion of the article that stressed on some of the structures that Nigeria had at a point in time. Yeah, so so let me bring it up. So one of the even so yeah, so take a look at one of the things that Nigerians are trying to put in place. So in this article, which is titled Nollywood Breaks Ground with Cannes Film Festival Debut, let's go to the section written Hope for the Future. And it reads that pending tax incentives for filmmakers currently moving through Parliament could prove transformative, boosting Nollywood's international presence via streaming platforms and co productions. American streamers began showing interest during the pandemic, with Netflix acquiring titles like Blood Sisters, Man of God, and the musical Ayinla. Local platforms are also flourished, especially in the North Hausa language, Kannywood, centered in Kano. Yeah, centered in Kano. So, looking at what Nigeria is even embarking on now, because of the foundation they've been able to build in the past in terms of distribution networks, even to an extent, the distribution network reached out to us here in Ghana. So that is how organized they were to that point. But now, what their government is looking at is being able to incentivize filmmakers to be able to produce quality films or focus on the quality of films that is ought to be produced, and perhaps even bring about the investors of businessmen to be able to put in the necessary structures necessary. If you read the article further, which let me just bring it back. If you read the article further, facing hurdles section says that, however, challenges remain. Amazon shut down its African operations last year, and Netflix is reportedly scaling back despite maintaining a public face of continuity. Still, local giants are stepping up. The Ebony Life Group, a key Nollywood player, is preparing to launch its own streaming platform. We'll start small and grow. We can't wait for others to do it for us. And said founder Mo Abudu, who's opening a Nigerian cultural center in London later this year. So Mo Abudu herself, who is a Nollywood player, has taken the reins because of the necessary support system that has existed up to this point in time. And now she's stepping in the gap that perhaps existed before these streaming giants came to fill in, to bring about a Nigerian owned streaming service, which I believe that with time may cut across Africa, just as in some form or fashion, DSTV and let's say Africa Magic exist in that space. So it is indeed commendable, and this has become possible because of how the government of Nigeria, I mean, of the day, helps bring about some of these systems to support their own filmmakers. And that has been the challenge where in Ghana, even though recent governments have done their best to help bring about policies, the effort has never really been enough. Most of the support that government gives is to bring about policies which sometimes take forever for it to actually be implemented or to be established in parliament, let alone to see to it that it is implemented. So that has indeed been a massive challenge for us over the years. And filmmakers in Ghana, those who were passionate and began way before, at certain point in time, either they give up or they continue in that pattern and yet are not able to make money off it. So they have to balance their filmmaking craft with other jobs just to sustain themselves. And when I'm talking about filmmakers, I'm talking about sometimes producers and directors themselves trying to balance their passion for the craft with their own job on the side. And it has not really been easy for industry personnel. Maybe in recent years, it looks like fortunes have changed a little bit, but still the lack of proper structures or infrastructure has been an issue. And that is something I keep drumming all the time, that without having the necessary structure, sustaining the craft itself is difficult because we don't have enough database or data to prove how the industry was performing back then. Yes, we have a fair knowledge as to how the industry has been performing, but as to the exact challenges we face, yes, people can name it, but if there was particular metric and perhaps reasons why these things were caused documented properly, we may be able to also pinpoint how to solve it scientifically in a way to convince investors to come on board to make, to help put the necessary structures in place. So it is indeed a challenge, and looking at the fact that we are in such a time where we need to even put these three things in place: data, structure, and policy. Looking at the fact that the attention of the world is on Africa in a way, because for these streaming giants to come to Africa and lend, bring about their systems in place to the Nollywood market, it means that they've seen the potential here. And seeing the potential is good, but we have to be prepared. We have to be prepared to be able to make sure that our industry is viable. It's viable and sustainable in a way. And I'm happy that we are not even waiting anymore. Looking at the fact that Mo Abudu of Ebony Life is trying to bring about her own streaming service in the system. Yesterday, I did a report on BRS Studios, which consists of three production companies that have teamed up to produce films of high production value. And these are some of the initiatives that Africans are taking on their own to make that happen. So it is indeed admirable. But before I wrap up my thoughts on this topic, there is an article, sorry, there is a research that was done way back as to how some of the systems, the established systems KSM is talking about actually existed way back. And this article is titled Nollywood Case Study of the Rising Nigerian Film Industry, Content and Production by Elizabeth T. Giwa, who was a student who was pursuing her master's at the Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. And this was published, I think, in the 1990s. And I'd like to read an excerpt of it briefly. Yeah, so it says that with several studies done in the past about the emerging Nollywood film industry, one in particular is the emerging video film industry in Nigeria, challenges and prospects. In these studies, EBEWO 2007 focuses on the challenges the industry has faced for the thematic obsession and repetitive themes for storylines. The Nigerian film industry is viewed in both positive and negative ways. Some find the plots to be highly repetitive and unrealistic, while others see them as expressions of the African culture. Despite the many perceptions Nollywood carries, the industry manages to defy the odds with new thought provoking films and high production quality. Nollywood films are simple, are a staple in many African homes. Haynes and Okome 1998 in the article Evolving Popular Media Nigerian video films, the authors discuss the evolution of Nigerian film production and its rise to popular culture. It has become necessity for Nigerian many African families and has grown into popular media for the country. It is evident that films that include relatable scenarios and traditions of the country have influenced the lifestyle of many Africans. Filmmakers, for the most part, have educated, self-conscious artists who have social or political motivations that occasionally influence their films. There is a system for producing films and allocating funding for distribution. Haynes and Okome 1998 found that Nollywood films are extensively distributed at local and international levels through film festivals and other non-commercial outlets. This has led to what we now see as Nigerian film and video production that has been deeply rooted into the culture of professional competence. Yeah, so this is an article that speaks about so this article was published in 2014. This research was published in 2014 and highlights how influential the Nigerian cinema has been the world over because of the evidence of their culture on even other cultures. Even in Ghana, you could feel the influence of Nigerian culture on Ghanaians to an extent, and this is as a result of the extensive distribution network they have. Nigerian films have been going to film festivals on a consistent basis that most often other African countries weren't. And it is indeed, and not just that, but they they dominated the African scene with their films even in the diaspora where others were struggling. And despite the fact that they also had their own issues and struggling, they still persisted. And this is as a result of that distribution network they have. Nigerians were selling DVDs on a scale that Ghanaians we couldn't. And not only that, evidenced by this research, they were in a lot of film festivals and their presence was felt. And so, true to that, KSM has a point, and indeed, what he has said concerning established systems, we do not have such. That is Ghana. We do not have such. And it will be very necessary that as the Black Star experience have been established at the moment to support the areas of film and other creative arts, incentives like tax, tax cuts downs and policies and investments to be very specific in that area are embarked on, because these were some of the reasons why countries like Canada and other European countries were attracting Hollywood investment into their film industry, and it worked. It worked so well. Australia is one country that attracts a lot of Hollywood productions because of some of the incentives they have uh, put in place for such a purpose. But not just that, but also for their own people to start with. So same can be done for Ghana, looking at what Nigeria is trying to do now to bring about incentives endorsed by parliament and the government to ensure that the filmmakers have some form of system that works for them and enables them to be more productive. So yes, KSM indeed has highlighted on why perhaps we are lacking way behind. That is, the Ghanaian film industry is lacking way behind our Nigerian counterparts. Yeah, so this sums up my first story for the day. And moving on from there to one Martin Scorsese, there is a documentary being done on Martin, and I like to also read a brief article concerning that documentary. So, moving on from there to, yeah, so let me, yeah, so in an article published on on the Verge website, it reads that Apple is making a five-part documentary on Martin Scorsese. Oh, I think I seem to have lost my article. Let me just, pardon me for a moment. Let me just bring it up again. So, just some basic challenges I'm having at the moment, but a minute, please. Yes, so let me get this fixed. Okay, so yes, so now I have it ready. So Martin Scorsese, a very prolific filmmaker who has been working in the industry for more than 5 decades, 60 decades, I mean 6 decades to be specific. There's a documentary being done on him, and this article highlights on what is happening. So Apple is making a five-part documentary on Martin Scorsese. It is Martin Scorsese's turn to be in front of the camera, and this article is written by Jess Weatherbird. After directing dozens of documentaries over his 60-year career, legendary filmmaker Martin Scorsese would now have his own life chronicled for Apple TV Plus. In its announcement, Apple says the five-part Mr. Scorsese documentary series will explore how themes like the place of good and evil in the fundamental nature of humankind have shaped Scorsese's filmography as far back as his students' work at New York University. Apple mentioned hasn't mentioned a release date for the docu-series, which is being directed by Rebecca Miller. She came to me personal velocity fame, Mr. Scorsese will benefit from exclusive, unrestricted access to Scorsese's private archives, according to Apple, alongside extensive interviews with Scorsese himself that dive into how his own life experiences have influenced his work. The series also includes never before seen interviews with the filmmaker's friends, family, and creative collaborators, including Robert De Niro, Leonardo DiCaprio, Mick Jagger, Robbie Robertson, Steven Spielberg, and Miller's husband, Daniel Day-Lewis. Scorsese's work and life are so vast and so compelling that the piece evolved from 1 to 5 parts over a 5 year period, said Miller. Crafting this documentary alongside my longtime collaborators has been one of the defining experience of my life as a filmmaker. Of my life as a filmmaker. Yeah, so indeed, I'm excited for this project being done because Martin Scorsese is one of the prolific filmmakers to have ever existed on this planet. And I say that for a reason because for those who have been following his work, he has quite such a volume of work that I'm not surprised that it is indeed reflecting even in this documentary because I mean he's lived a long life. I think he's in his 80s and having lived a long life and the kind of films that he has brought to us is such an amazing opportunity to also have a glimpse of the life he has behind the camera. All we know is most of the we all we know about him is through some small documentaries that doesn't really highlight much of his life, but when he's part of an ensemble of filmmakers whose lives are sort of chronicled, parts of their lives are chronicled. But this documentary in a way will give a very in-depth insight as to who Martin Scorsese is behind the camera, and it is indeed worth taking a look at why perhaps his filmography or his this documentary is that long. So when you go to the Wikipedia page, his filmography is as long as you can imagine. Not just you know he's such a versatile filmmaker that he did not just feature films but done documentaries. He's done also TV productions. He's executive producer and produced, and not just that, he also acted. And this is such a long list of films that the legendary Martin Scorsese has done from the year 1967 till now. He's been making movies, and the roster just keeps going on. I mean, from Who's That Knocking at My Door to right through the 70s and the 80s, 90s. He's been working tirelessly every decade. So 2023. So that is how voluminous his, you know, feature film is. And not just that, when we move beyond that, these are documentary films he's done also throughout the decades, from the 60s throughout to the current 2000s. So it is of a no surprise that his the documentary being done on him, I think titled Mr. Scorsese, in itself is as lengthy as his film career, as said by Rebecca Miller, wife of Daniel Day Lewis, one of the perhaps unarguably the best actor ever alive. Yeah, so it is indeed quite a lengthy list of films that he's done. We also have short films that he's done from the 60s, even from the 50s, yes, from the 50s to the 2000s as well. So, but so this is indeed exciting. This I'll be leaving this in the what's it called? I mean, let me just even scroll down a little bit more for you to see the acting roles he also engaged. So one of the exciting discovery also I made was the fact that he was the director for the music video Bad for Michael Jackson. And that is amazing, for him to have lent his directorial, prowess to Bad, which became one of the most iconic music videos ever. It is indeed such a feat that Martin Scorsese has been able to achieve. He's done commercials and he's done it all. I mean, just name it from commercial, and these are some acting performances and documentary appearances that he has made as well. So, and this also spans from the 60s to the current decade we find ourselves in. So, Martin has been very busy over the years and always working. So, it is indeed a life well lived as a filmmaker, and I'm happy that this documentary is being done on him whilst he's still alive and not later. So it is indeed exciting, and Martin Scorsese has influenced the genre of a crime thriller or gangster for such a long time. He he has been very based on his life, in New York and living amongst the culture of his own people and seeing some of the things that he saw, he these experiences influenced a lot of his films. It's influenced a lot of his films, and it looks like that's what this even documentary will be highlighting on mostly on how the life he lived growing up influenced the kind of films he also chose to make. And indeed, it will be exciting to see what makes Martin Scorsese tick, in terms of how he's able to come up with such stories and the why every film perhaps was influenced by certain aspects of his life. So indeed, it is exciting be to have the privilege to see the life and legacy of Martin Scorsese and learn a thing or two by filmmakers from all over the world. So, indeed, I'm excited and I'll be looking forward to this documentary because his life indeed is amazing to take a look at, looking at how extensive his works has been, spanning from films to television to other documentaries, even music videos and commercials. So yeah, we'll be looking forward to this 5 part documentary that Apple is embarking on with regards to the life of Martin Scorsese. Martin Scorsese. So yeah, and so this sums up my 2 stories for the day. But today being a Friday, as usual, I bring to you movies that are releasing this very weekend, and that is what we'll be taking a look at right away. And so, starting with Ghana, what is happening in Ghana and perhaps in Nigeria, Silverbird Cinemas will be showing a number of films which are releasing today. So, Mission Impossible is releasing today, May 23rd. And if you've been observing what is happening in the internet space, Mission Impossible's promotion have been, very large and big with the, because I think this happens to be his final Mission Impossible movie, and so the promotion for this flick has been very extensive. And not forgetting Lilo and Stitch. Lilo and Stitch is adaptation from the animated version of it. It's also releasing today and is expected to do big box office numbers. And also moving on, there's also another film dropping today, which is a Nollywood film which says My Mother is a Witch. An interesting title indeed, which is releasing today. And also Final Destination Bloodlines, which is a thriller released last week. And yeah, and then Shadow Force by Lupin actor Psy and also Scandal actress Kerry Washington released a couple of weeks ago. And also Thunderbolts is still in the cinemas, in addition to all the other films as well. So yeah, you can take a look at them when you have the time to go to the cinema to watch them. And moving on from there, as usual, we also want to take a look at what is going to or what is happening in the international scene or what is being shown in the international scene. So we'll move on from the silverbed cinema right to the Rotten Tomatoes website, and let's see what is releasing internationally today. So, new movies in theaters 2025. You have, as usual, Mission Impossible, which is sitting at an 18%, 80% critic score and a 93% audience score. That is quite a high score for, I mean, yes, deservedly so because he's been putting his blood and sweat in it. And not just that, but the films are actually very good as well. Lilo and Stitch as well is also at 72% critic score and then 93% audience score. Friendship is also releasing today, and you have also the last rodeo also releasing today. And then moving on from there, you have Jane Austen Wrecked My Life, also releasing today. And then the Surrender, also a film releasing today. So there are a lot more films releasing today on the international scene. You have Run, Akira Kurosawa, which is a re-release from I think the 60s or so. It's being re-released today also in cinemas, in some selected cinemas. And then The Trial of Vengeance, which is also opening today. Also, The New Boy opens today, and then the Northern Lights is also opening today. So there are lots more films opening today, both from not just the North American markets and European markets, but also from India and the lot. So I'll be leaving all these films. I'll be leaving this. I'll be leaving the link in the comments, the description below, so that you can take a look at it if you want to find a film to watch this weekend. So all too soon, I bring this episode to an end, and I'll be coming your way again on Monday. But I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all my audience for joining me for this very episode. And then this indeed has been the Film Mandate, an exciting week. We'll be coming your way once again on Monday with another episode of the Film Mandate. So I will see you soon.